Hello, welcome to Newington Food Club. Today I'm cooking with butternut squash and chickpeas. I'm going to be making one of my favourite Middle Eastern dishes. I'm going to be making a tagine. We're going to need a few extra ingredients to go into our tagine. Onion, garlic. If you've got a small butternut squash or a massive family, you might want to add some potatoes and some carrots, but we're not going to bother with those today because we've got a big squash. Salt, obviously, you can't have those flavours coming out without some salt to bring them out. And finally, we're going to add a tin of tomatoes in there as well. Maybe some veg stock, we shall see. So first thing first is to deal with the onions. So I tend to use quite a big knife. You might want to use a smaller one, but whatever you do, keep your fingers out of the way. And we're going to chop these kind of medium. This is for 4 of us, so I'm going to maybe use 2 smallish onions. When you're chopping the onion, this is the way I chop an onion. There's lots of ways of doing it, but I chop it in half, chop it into slices, but not all the way to the back, so it's holding together. Then fingers out of the way. And that's good to go. There's a bit of yellow turmeric there, Alex. That's because I was making some spice mix earlier, and I'll explain the spices in a bit. That's the only bit I've not spoken about yet. Again, fingers out of the way, not too fast. You can chop through the end bit then if you want. And that's ready to go in. Now there are a couple of ways of cooking a tagine. One of the ways is to fry the onions first and then cook that tagine, but I'm actually going to do it the more traditional way, where you just pile everything into the pot. So I'm going to put that into a top pot. Now we're going to do with the butternut squash. This I think would be tricky with a small knife, but I shall give it a go. So butternut squash really comes in 2 halves. There's the bottom half here where the seeds are, and there's a top bit which is all just really nice flesh. I think one of the reasons why they've been bred like this and why they're so popular is because there's very little in the middle that is empty, that is just full of seeds like a normal pumpkin, because it's part of the pumpkin family. Lots of nice flesh, so I'm going to try this. Oh, that's not too bad actually. And then what I'm going to do is take the skin off, because the skin's really hard. Again, always keep your finger well away from the knife, or your fingers well away from the knife. So it can be done with my tiny little veg knife, but I'm going to try this one with my slightly bigger knife, just because it's a bit more comfortable for me to use actually. So get the bottom off. Here we go. Actually, I'm going to go back to the little knife actually. So actually, apart from the big chopping job, actually it does peel better, but it was a bit more comfortable for chopping. What I am going to do is get rid of any of the lighter bits, because they're kind of the bottom of the skin, or the back of the skin, so I'm going to get rid of those a little bit because they won't be as sweet, and any of the bits of hard skin left over. And then what you're going to find is, I'm going to go for a big knife this time. When you chop it in half, you have in this bulby half at the bottom, you've got the seeds, and you can just scrape those out with a spoon. So I'll grab a spoon and get rid of those. If you want to experiment, you can try growing those seeds. You can actually just dry them out and toast them, and they make a fantastic snack. Dry frying pan, bit of salt, and sit on the sofa and munch them. They're really nice. All gone, and now this is going to get chopped up into cubes, really, like that and like that. There we go. This cooks quite quickly and goes quite soft, so you don't have to chop them too small. And this one's a slightly tougher job, so I'm going to be careful with these big vegetables. See, my hand's completely out of the way. They cook quite easily, so you don't need to have your hands in there getting in harm's way. That is good to go in the pan. So you can see this is already a big full pan now. Now that second ingredient, which is the chickpeas. Chickpeas are already cooked and fresh, and they actually in some ways taste nicer than dried chickpeas, which you can get from the health food shops. They are in a, not a syrup, but a gloop really. We need to get rid of that, so we're going to go to the sink and wash it. I'm going to use a sieve rather than a colander, but let's say you haven't got a sieve or a colander, what I would do is, and I'll do that now, if I didn't have one, I would put them, drain them into here, which is a bowl, and then just wash them and then rinse them. And I'm going to do that. So you might manage it with a colander, but they can be a bit tricky. But what I'm going to do is just stir it with my hands, drain off the water, do that a couple of times. If you do have a So you see what I did there, drained it a couple of times, added the water, drained it. Much easier with a sieve, but we don't always have a big sieve. Right, we are almost there now. We're going to start adding the garlic. So here's some garlic I pulled apart. A couple of little tricks here. The garlic skin can seem tricky to get off, but really it's mainly attached at the bottom. So we get our knife, chop through the bottom. You may well just peel off. If it doesn't, big flat knife, light hit, and it removes the skin. Or with the palm of your hand till it cracks, chop the end off. It's literally falling apart. Garlic press, if you can get hold of one, is really good, but you don't need it. You can give it a bit of a squash and a chop. Again with your fingers out of the way. Let's do that with a little knife. Bit of a squash to help break it up. You're going to want to wash your hands after this, obviously. That is good to go in the pan. And finally, the tin of tomatoes. Let's see how much juice this gives us. So those were chopped tomatoes. If not, you might want to get the knife inside the tin of tomatoes, go like that, and it chops it up for you. Spoon, mix. Quite clearly not enough, so I'm going to put some veg stock in. While I'm making the veg stock, I want to mention something. I put no meat in here because it's midweek and we don't eat meat for quite a lot of meals. We're not all vegetarian. In fact, none of us are really vegetarian, but we don't eat meat all the time. What would go in there? Lamb or chicken. And you might want to quickly fry it first before you put it in. If you put lamb in or chicken in, you may not need veg stock, just water would do. Right, this is good to go. There we go. So half a litre of veg stock is enough to cover this. That is so nearly there now. There's one last thing. The thing that makes this is the ingredients a little bit, well, a lot, and also really importantly, the spices. And what I've got here is a special spice mix. There's spices in there that you will be used to if you cook any Indian cookery, and there's a couple of extra special ones in here that give it a bit of a lemony flavour as well. If you want to make your own tagine spice mix, you'll need cumin, coriander, ginger, turmeric, and somewhere between half to a teaspoon of each, depending on how spicy you like it. You also might want to make it a spicier mix by putting some chili or cayenne in. I'll leave that to you. And then I put in sumac, which gave it its lemon flavour, but you could also add lemon juice as an alternative. Now you have a couple of choices. Traditional tagine is cooked in the oven with a cooking pot with a lid on. So if you have an oven dish or an oven cooking pot that is oven proof with a lid on, that will work. I'm going to cook it on the top. What I'm going to do is bring it up to start to simmer. So there's little bubbles just starting to appear. Turn it right down. If this is just vegetarian, you could have it ready in 40 minutes. If you've got time and you make it early enough, I would leave it on a really low heat for an hour, because the flavours start to develop and it tastes much nicer if you can leave it longer. But obviously if you've got meat in there, definitely you want to leave it for an hour, because you want to make sure that it all cooks. And then it's good to go. You can have it with rice. Couscous is traditional. With bread is very traditional as well. And actually you could just have it on its own, because there's plenty of energy and carbohydrate in the butternut squash, and there would also be if you had potatoes in there as well. So here we go. We've been cooking away for about 10 minutes just to get some heat on there so that it's starting to simmer. And now the final thing is the taste test. Obviously it's really not cooked now. Maybe give it a little while longer if you've got meat in there, because you've got to make sure the meat's well cooked and it's really hot. So maybe a good 20 or 30 minutes. And I'm going to taste it. Yes, that is absolutely fine. The veg stock has given me plenty of salt. If I'd been using other ingredients, I might have wanted to add some salt in there. If you like spicy food, this is the point to start putting in some chilli as well. I've avoided chilli so far. My son doesn't like hot food that's too spicy. I'm getting of an age where food that's too spicy doesn't do me any good either. So I'm avoiding that. But if you want it to be really authentic and you do like a hot curry, for example, now's the time to whack some chili powder or cayenne pepper in there. So that's hot enough now. It's gone right down. The lid's on. I'll be coming doing the occasional stir, but apart from that, I can go and relax while tea cooks itself. Thanks for watching Newington Food Club.